Welcome to Mr. Podcast with Claude.
And Justin.
We are here starting our Watchmen series of podcasts,
Woo!
covering the pilot episode, which I'm sure has a title. I don't know what that title is,
Who watches
but
The Watchmen? No, I have no idea what it's called.
it's something.
Let me find out. It's got a name. Give
We're
me a
very
name.
prepared.
Yeah, I know. We know all the facts.
Yep.
Let's see. It's called It's Summer and We're Running Out of Ice.
Yeah, I knew that. That's what I knew. So this is the new hot Damon Lindelof joint, fresh off the presses, premiered last week. The HBO adaptation, if you will, of the movie adaptation, if you will, of the comic, if you will,
If you will.
adaptation, if
I
you
hope
will,
that you will.
if you will, go through those steps. So what did you think, Justin? I mean, I guess we could talk a little bit about our experience with The Watchmen.
General reaction? You looking for a general
Yeah,
reaction? Should we play the bumper?
yeah. Cue the bumper.
General reaction. I don't know. What do those sound like? I'm going a little Jay and Jack here.
Yeah,
I
hopefully
have no
not
frame of
that.
reference.
Yeah,
I
we
feel
don't
like
do
people don't do that
bumpers.
anymore. I listen to
Yeah,
podcasts and
yeah. That's
like
done now.
they'll do like an intro thing, but
Yep.
yeah, I feel like that was like
Yeah,
I don't know,
it's
old
over.
school.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because everyone does podcasts now. Like it used to be a
yeah,
thing, and like now everyone's got a podcast.
yeah,
So
exactly,
yeah,
exactly. And no one's got time for that. Like, just
yeah.
say
No
your
one.
fucking thing. Like,
Yeah, just get on with it.
yeah, like we don't need all
So
that.
I did not read the graphic novel The Watchmen ever. My only experience
Good.
with the story. Thanks, I worked hard on that.
I'm proud of
My
you.
only experience was the movie that came out years ago that I had mixed feelings about. Basically, my review of the movie was it was okay. I thought that the the story of the movie is that there's these sort of superhero characters who in their heyday had some adventures, but the story is about after all their heyday stuff. And my whole thing
They've
after I
been
watched the
like
movie,
outlawed or something like that.
yeah. So my whole thing with the movie was like, wow, I'd rather watch what you guys were doing in your heyday. Like that seemed more interesting to me than the actual story of the Watchmen in the movie. I did
Which
really
is
like,
more or less the story of the comics, I think.
yeah, and I did like the Doctor Manhattan character a lot. I thought that was probably the most interesting character.
Hmm.
But besides that, it was kind of hit and miss to me. I wasn't really in love with it. Yeah, what did you think of the movie?
I pretty much agree. I thought it was okay. I think there was something interesting about the world and the subject matter and the take on superheroes
Mhm.
that I appreciated, but I think the actual movie was, yeah, it was mediocre. It was fine. I mean, it was, very stylized, and the action was entertaining,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think the moment I probably liked the best was towards the end when it's like, uh I don't remember how they say it, but it's like, oh yeah, like you're trying to stop me, but I already did the thing like 30 minutes ago. Like, I thought that was
Ozymandias,
great.
yeah, like yeah, there are. That's what you're talking about, like something like they're trying to stop him from blowing up the city or something,
Yeah,
and it
exactly.
was like too late
Yeah.
because he's like the smartest character or something.
Yeah. It's like the normal way that plot goes
Yeah.
is, you stop them just in time, and they sit there and they yak, they start yapping on and on
Mhm.
to the hero character, even if they're captured long enough to, be defeated, and their plan to be stopped, and the
Mhm.
world is saved, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, no, 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 I already did that. It's over. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Because it caught me off guard. I think if I understand correctly, and if there's any like hardcore comic fans, sorry, I haven't read the comics either. I saw the movie. I have some vague idea. I think in the comics it's actually like a giant squid that
Mhm.
attacks like New York City, and I think there's some reference to it here in the
Yes.
show.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think the show is like taking the comics as backstory. That's what I've been led to believe by like articles that I've read, where um, Damon Lindelof has talked about the show and like how it relates to the comics. So it's sort of like you could take that as like backstory. I don't think you have to know it to really understand the show, but
Yeah, I
just to say
believe
like,
the show takes place some decades after the events in the graphic
yeah,
novel, is what
it's
I
basically set in the
understand.
present, and the comics were like written and set in the 80s.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and I think the movie was also set in the 80s. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's what they did.
Yep, I think that's right.
It felt that way. Like, like Richard Nixon is on his whatever term, like that's it's like
Mm-hmm.
this alternate, what do they call it? Speculative fiction
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. Um, which I think is interesting, it's like to me that's a cool idea. Um, you know, reading comics is like not something I've really ever learned how to do,
Mm-hmm.
but I like the idea of the story. And in terms of like, I guess superhero stories are something that I always have some trouble with. And I think, the thing about Watchmen that was interesting is that with the exception of Dr. Manhattan, which is, is its own thing, like most of the Watchmen like don't actually have superpowers. They're just like, they just have like training. They're like Batman or something,
Yeah.
like
Mm-hmm.
they have gadgets and they're like good at like uh they have
Gadgeting.
reflexes and martial arts and stuff, but
Yeah.
like but they don't literally have like magic, these like you know powers that a lot of superheroes have. They could fly or they
Fantasy
climb
powers. Yeah.
buildings, they could shoot lasers out of their eyes or whatever. Like it's none of that. So it's like it's strangely grounded, and it's also like a very political story, I think.
Yep.
It's like framed in that way, and I think this new series like really picks up on that, in a way that maybe is like a little more interesting, or at the very least like a little more connected to current times.
Yeah.
Like when it was written in the 80s, I think it was very very now, but it's been a long time since the 80s. Sorry. um
Who are
so
you apologizing
it's
to?
a different I'm apologizing to myself. I don't know. Everyone who misses the 80s,
Okay.
basically. Um I mean it's like nostalgic in a way. You got Stranger Things, there's a lot of like 80s nostalgia, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um but it's a different world. And
Also,
I think
80s show.
the new show is like trying to uh bring the concept of the comics up into something that feels like a little more current,
Yeah.
that like resonates with what's going on now, while at the same time being still a kind of speculative alternate reality. It's not like it's Trump, it's
Mm-hmm.
Robert Redford, as the president.
Mm-hmm.
So but you still have all this like crazy shit. And I guess like the stuff from the comics, the giant squid, whatever other bullshit happened in the movie slash comics, like happened, but it's over.
Yeah.
And there's this whole thing with the police. Like there's a lot of stuff to take in. Like um it's actually hard to digest like everything that's going on in this world.
Yep.
Just from the episode itself. Um, but anyway, just to get back to yeah, my general perspective is pretty similar. I feel pretty similarly about the movie. Like I think it was fine, but I feel like there was room to make a more interesting movie out of that material. And I kind of feel like this show has potential to sort of realize that.
Yeah. I think it only is going to be able to
It
have a better
already feels
footing.
better to me
Yeah, I think
from
the
one
big thing
episode.
is it's more relevant to what's happening right now, and that's a huge thing. And I think it being its own material and not just an adaptation of the source material is huge.
Right.
So I was
Oh,
able to
I love
just
that.
yeah, I
Yeah,
was able to just go in and not the stuff that I don't understand. I know the show is going to explain in its own
exactly.
time,
Yeah.
and there is a
And
lot to
there's
digest
Easter
and
eggs,
figure
but you don't
out.
have to know those to
Yeah.
like follow the story.
Yeah, so I think, but yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the pilot. I thought it was a good setup. It did a lot of there's a couple of key things it did that hooked me, that it could have done badly that would have not hooked me.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think, yeah, overall I enjoyed it, and it makes me think it's going to be, worth watching. And another, it reminds me a little bit of like Westworld, just
Mm.
in terms of it being an HBO
Yeah.
show, high caliber,
Yeah.
good
Sort of a
people who are,
speculative
yeah,
sci-fi thing.
exactly. Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping it doesn't go down the rabbit holes that did, where it
Me
just
too.
became like, it kind of became uninteresting,
Yeah.
sort of too self-involved, almost, maybe I would say, for
Yeah.
Westworld.
Yeah.
And I couldn't really connect anything that was happening in Westworld to real life,
Yeah.
which isn't always a thing you need to do. But
No, 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 no.
yeah. So anyway,
No.
I
I think
enjoyed the
yeah,
pilot.
just like some of the mysteries, Westworld was like um I think I think it was really wrapped up in some of those like trying to surprise you with various things, and it was like they had a few moves. It was like
Hmm.
this character's a robot or like whatever they called him.
Hmm.
Um that was move number 1, and then move number 2 was oh, we're playing around with the timeline, like you
Hmm.
think these things are happening simultaneously, but
Yeah.
this is actually in the past,
Yeah, and I didn't
which is kind
appreciate
of
those
bullshitty.
gimmicks because it felt unnecessary. And it didn't feel, I didn't understand why I was being tricked.
Yeah, it seemed
When
like just tricking you for its own sake, just
Yeah,
for shock
yeah,
value or whatever. It
just
didn't really seem to
because
serve a
it didn't
purpose.
have a more interesting story to tell, so they
Yeah,
decided to tell a less interesting story in a tricky way,
yeah,
and
exactly.
that felt gimmicky to me.
Yeah,
And yeah, but anyway, I'm hoping. I have very high hopes for Watchmen, and because I think
yeah,
it's specifically because of what it's trying to do. It seems like it has a very specific thing, and I've actually not read much about the show because I want to be surprised. So I don't really know what Damon Lindelof has said he's trying to do. I don't
yeah.
really want to get into that kind of stuff personally because I just want to be surprised by the show and see
Sure.
what kind of happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I generally agree. I really read the articles that I read because I wanted to know how it was supposed to relate to the comics. That was the specific thing I was worried about, I guess.
Hmm.
Like, was it just taking the comics as like sort of inspiration and going from there, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I just wasn't clear on that, so I just wanted to know what the approach was, but yeah, I don't need to hear every thought on like what the story is and how it's going and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's better to just let the story develop as it's told, in the actual show. And I
Yep.
think yeah, it was a compelling pilot. I definitely, it raised a lot of questions. It felt, Lindelofy, for lack of a better word. Um,
Hmm.
and at the same time, it presented a comic booky, superhero y world that I could actually appreciate. I don't know. It still felt like grounded in some kind of
Yeah, it's barely
reality.
superhero-y, right? Like at
Yeah, it
this
is. Yeah,
point,
it's
it's,
right on the
yeah,
edge of that, definitely.
yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, arguably it's not that, but it's like, they wear these costumes.
Yeah,
They
the
have some
vigilante.
technology.
At this point, there's some vigilanteism, and
Yeah.
there's some sci-fi-ish technology. Um, with a couple of the ship and things like
Yeah, they had the
that.
owl thing. That was in the movie. I remember
Yeah.
that.
But otherwise, yeah, it's really, really, really grounded, which I think is the way to go for this thing. So that
Yeah,
when
definitely.
a crazy thing does happen, it'll really stand out, and they have
Yeah.
room to grow into
Yeah.
whatever they might do for that. I mean, honestly, the only character I'd like to see is Dr. Manhattan because I think he's like the most interesting character
Yeah.
in the world. So I'm curious what might how that character might fit into this world, and I'm
Yeah.
not really plugged into any of the other characters from Watchmen, so I really
There's a
don't
brief
care.
reference to Dr. Manhattan, like a TV news story,
Okay.
um, that like they show very briefly, like Dr. Manhattan on Mars or something like that, and they show this like
Gotcha.
building, and you see him like, I yeah, I
I think I
uh
missed that. Yeah,
it's
interesting.
yeah, it's pretty brief. I guess we're gonna watch it, so we'll see it here in a
Yeah,
second.
we'll do a commentary so we can you guys at home can sync up with us and watch it with us as we discuss it. And
But yeah, I
yeah.
agree. In terms of like the characters from the comics, it's like so. I guess like one thing that I did get out of the thing, which um, is like sort of, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but whatever. Anyway, it's out there. Is that like so? Since they're taking the comics as a background, like if a character died in the comics, then that character is dead.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Rorschach, for example, dies in the comics.
Okay.
So the actual Rorschach, I mean, there's like this group that's appropriating the mask and stuff like that. That's a thing. That's a
Mhm.
way to sort of keep the character alive. In a way, it's almost like a Man in Black block thing. But the actual Rorschach is dead.
Okay.
So he won't be in the show, for example.
Gotcha. Well,
But I think Dr. Manhattan, any of the characters who are alive at the end of the comics could show up or not, but clearly from the pilot, they are not the focus. The focus is these new characters that,
yep.
you know, have been invented by the team, which I think is a great idea. Like, I vastly prefer this to
Yep.
what I thought it was going to be, which was just an adaptation of the comic.
Mhm.
Like, I was not that excited about it because I feel like I already knew the story, and it's like, okay, like maybe you can do
Yep.
the giant squid or something, but like, I don't necessarily need to see
And
that.
that's the thing about Damon Lindelof, and he wants to do interesting things, and I think there could have been a lot of other writer and creators who would have just, hey, let's just do the Watchmen on TV, and
Yeah,
it'll be the same thing, and we'll just go comic issue by issue,
yeah,
and we'll just recreate that story. And I think it's way more interesting to do it this way. It's similar to the leftovers thing.
definitely.
He likes to live in that adaptation world where he can leverage the source material, but then
Yeah,
also create something new.
yeah.
I think that
Even
that's
Prometheus is like that.
Prometheus the exact same way. Yeah, he likes that sweet spot. He doesn't necessarily want to create his own thing from scratch.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Even
likes
Lost was that way.
even
Lost was a thing
yep,
before he joined.
exactly. That's really been his MO for his career. It's like
Yeah,
I will take something that exists and then figure out what's interesting about it or an
yeah,
interesting way to look at it and go from there. So yeah, Lost was great. Obviously, as you guys know, we liked Lost, so A+ on that.
big fans.
Leftover, yeah, I like a little bit. And Leftovers. Overall, I'd give that show a thumbs up. It had some hits and misses, but
Great moments.
overall,
I mean,
yeah,
season 2 had like some of the best things I've ever seen. It's just that, yeah, season 3 was
yep,
a little bit of a letdown, and season 1 is like kind of weird. Season 1 is actually an adaptation of the novel.
yep.
Um, I do feel like they took off when they got out of the novel, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think I was gonna say this
We'll
on the
say
Lost
it.
Slowdown,
Oh,
but since we're talking about a Damon Lindelof thing, maybe it's appropriate to throw in here because I don't think this has really been in Watchmen yet. I mean, there's only one episode, so like, what can you say about a show that's like so new? But
mm-hmm.
um, I I feel like one big problem I had with season 3 of The Leftovers was that um, they built up this mythology, and they really lean on it in a way for the narrative, but at the same time there was a lot of signaling from the way those things are framed, like with
Mm-hmm.
the like perfect strangers thing, and the book of Kevin and all this stuff, where it was turned into this weird sort of jokey thing where it was like,
Mm,
here's our mythology, here's our mysteries, but they're also like kind of silly
mm,
bullshit. um and I feel like there is a little bit of that attitude in Lost,
mm-hmm.
and I don't know, that to me that kind of bothers me, I guess. Like, if I'm actually going to be invested in a thing, I don't want to be told it's like silly bullshit. Um, but if you tell me it's silly bullshit, then like, why do I
It's
care?
interesting you say that because I feel like the epitome of that in a nutshell in one scene from The Leftovers is the disappearing bagel.
Yeah,
Because there's something silly about a bagel disappearing and trivial, but
yeah,
it's also very crazy if it did disappear.
right,
So I think it's a good
yeah,
example of what you're talking about, where it gets, yeah, there's something there to his theming that he likes maybe it's underlining the absurdity of these types of situations, and that's how
yeah,
he can illustrate that how absurd it is by making it jokey or making it
yeah,
in that kind of way of like, well, of all the people, blah 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 blah, this guy from Perfect Strangers, like,
right,
um this thing that comes out of left field, so yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting. Yeah, I can see that.
yeah. I think I just enjoyed it more. Not that like a little bit of, comedy or absurdity is like a problem. It's just that like when that becomes like the focal viewpoint
Hmm.
for certain storylines, this whole like, oh, the chicken told me the world's gonna end. It's just like
Yeah.
it's like, okay, like I really don't care now. Like, why do you even
Well, that's the thing, and I think that's why he keeps doing that is because it's almost this I don't know if I can find the right words, but it's almost this like you're on you're a fish on the end of a fishing hook, right? And they're reeling you in, and as they're reeling you in towards a fantastical idea, right? That okay, 2% of the world's population disappeared. Okay, that's a fantastical idea that they proved was true. Now, what else can we get you to believe? Can we get you to believe a chicken can talk? And I
right?
think that's where the thing is, that to me that's where it comes from, and that's where the ideas lie, is now that we've told you you're on a mystical island,
Yeah,
what else could you believe? And I think that's the question he really likes to ask, right? Is when you say in Leftovers was all about that, right? When you say something supernatural has happened, what else will that get you to believe? If okay, 2% of the world's
yeah,
population disappears, does that mean someone can hug you and take your guilt away?
yeah,
I don't know. Let's find out. And I think that's the playground, right? So when you set up the boundaries of the world, which is at one point in one discrete way, something crazy happened, right? So now we set up the boundaries of the world, or we've set up the playground for the world, and then you try to figure out what the boundaries of that belief system becomes, right, for each individual character, right? So Locke is, I'm landed on this island, now I can walk. Now what does that make me think about myself and my place and what we should do, right? Versus Jack of, I land on this island and there's some weird stuff, but yeah, I saw my dad maybe, but I'm also still going to be skeptical for a very long time.
hmm
Versus if he was paraplegic and then could walk, right? He would have had a different perspective on that. So I think you bring up an interesting point, because that's really the bulk of kind of what Damon likes to do, is ask that question of, now that we've convinced you something crazy is possible in the world, what else will you believe in? And that really ties into our real reality of our beliefs, and which lead to our actions, right? So if you believe that this presidential candidate has a mandate to lead, what does that mean? Or if you're religious and you think this event is ordained by God, then what will you believe? You know what I mean? So like that idea of setting up sort of the extent at which reality is malleable or crazy or unpredictable, what follows after that, because he's not he doesn't want to go, cool, some people disappeared, now everything's normal, right? It's not that world. It's
right,
some people disappeared and now people are going to keep thinking weird things because of that weird thing that happened.
right.
And that seems to be what he likes to deal with, is how far will we go after that point, you know because that was the interesting thing about The Leftovers, right? Just because one crazy thing happens doesn't mean it'll happen again, and doesn't necessarily mean the other supernatural or possibly supernatural events are real,
Right.
but the way the human mind works, we might we might tie those things together, right? And say, well, hey, that one crazy thing happened. Maybe this crazy thing can happen,
Yeah.
and I think that's an interesting place to kind of to deal with story. It's a very unique like engine or whatever for storytelling.
Yeah. 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 And I think it is something that I'm drawn to in a certain way, obviously, but at the same time, it can be very frustrating. And I think
Hmm.
that's what has led to some of the backlash,
Hmm.
or at least in part, like that's
Well,
an issue with the
yeah,
backlash.
because when you start asking those questions, what other crazy things can happen, then the audience kind of wants an answer, but
Yeah,
he doesn't want to give you an answer because
he's
that's
not
not
really
the
interested
point.
in that part. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, because he doesn't know.
right, right.
He doesn't know, and he wants you to think about it and let the mystery be.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
so it's interesting to me to see how Watchmen is going to deal with that because as we said, the pilot is pretty grounded, but there are some crazy aspects of the world. So I'm curious to see how
Yeah,
that quality we should name whatever that is that I don't know how to describe it, but that thing of you set up a crazy scenario and then you're invited to, you know, you're invited to dig your own grave into how much you think things will continue to be crazy.
right, right. Yeah, yeah. How much else does that allow, or like,
Mhm.
how much does that open you up to believing in any number of
Mhm.
other things? But yeah, that I
Yeah,
mean, that's a very heavy focal point for the leftovers. And
it's almost like, oh, I won the lotto, which is very, the odds are very low that you'll win. But does that mean I'm super extra lucky now? you
mm-hmm,
know? Or does that mean
right,
that because I won this crazy thing that like I should actually expect never to be lucky again?
right, right,
Or does it have no bearing on
or
how
neither.
lucky I'll be? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Which that's the Lindelof shuffle. That's the
yeah,
three qualities.
right, right. Yeah,
It's this thing
yeah,
or that thing or neither things. Or the
yeah,
fourth time, it's like it's both things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think with this show so far, um it's not quite there yet. Like, I think it's
Hmm.
the questions you have in from the pilot are more basic questions. Like, they're not on the level of,
Yeah.
it did this crazy supernatural thing happen. It's just like, you
Hmm.
know why did this character do this thing,
They're all basic
like,
drama questions. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like something you could, so I think there is still like a mystery element, but a
Hmm.
lot of it is about the world building, and a lot of it is just about like character motivations, that we don't fully know yet, or maybe character backstories that we don't fully know yet,
Yeah.
which is also something he enjoys a lot. But yeah, I don't like, from the pilot alone, like, I don't fully see. But on the other hand, it takes a while for Lost and the Leftovers to get there. So it's entirely possible that
Oh,
as the
it'll get
season
there.
progresses, we'll
There's no way it's not going to get there.
we'll head in that direction.
There's no way. Yeah, there's no way it's not going to get there.
But yeah, so far
Yeah.
it's more like a show with unanswered questions that, you know um I could see someone else do,
I mean, listen, for his major
theoretically.
TV shows, season two is where the sweet spot is. So I'm
Right.
expecting season one of this to be pretty good and lay the groundwork for a really awesome season two, is
Yeah,
how
yeah,
I
yeah.
would sort of expect this to go if I was betting on it. Because he'll have some more freedom once he gets out
Right.
the adaptation y kind of stuff. Um, and the sort of basic ideas that they had, they'll, write themselves into a corner and then come up with something crazy for season two.
Right.
Well, cool. All right, you want to get into
Right.
it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right,
Let's watch
everybody.
this thing.
We're gonna sync up with this for some. It's summer and we're running out of ice. Is that what's going on? Is that what it's going?
Yeah, that sounds right. Great title.
Yeah. Okay. I guess we'll do a countdown here. We'll do some Watchmen pilot.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, everybody. Here we go. Watchmen pilot. And 5, 4, 3, 2, play. Watchmen Real. I really enjoyed this intro. I thought it was
Oh, I
really well
forgot
done.
about this intro. When I saw this intro, I immediately thought about The Leftovers.
Ah, uh-huh.
Like this sort of like weird out of context intro thing.
Mm,
It's like, huh?
yep. Yeah, I thought this was an interesting way to start it.
Like the
Especially,
connection to the show is like a little bit
yeah, you're trying to figure out how does
vague.
this relate to the show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like silent
But
movie
it's
style.
actually, really, 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 really connected. Not
Yeah,
only in terms of the real history of this character they're displaying, but this idea of law and order and the sheriff and protecting people, um, you know, which we're going to see throughout the entire show. Yeah.
right. Right.
Bats Reeves. Yep, that's the last shot in the episode. It's basically a sheriff badge.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
And then they cut to this, which I thought was really interesting.
Oh, okay, right. So there's actually two layers to the intro.
Yeah.
The movie and then the flashback.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess that's the main thing. Like in the Leftover season 2, they had this flashback to like long ago in the same place as like where Jordan
Yeah,
was.
gotcha.
That's what this reminds me of.
Yeah, because this exactly the main story takes place in the same town.
Exactly.
Yeah, I remember like why is she crying as she's playing this, and then I'm like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah, I really did not expect this.
Yeah, the context here, I mean, it's completely out of left field. Really haven't seen anything like it. I was familiar with this general story of the riots
When
here.
did you learn about this, by the way?
I heard about this several years ago.
Okay, yeah, I think I learned about this about 2 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, it
I
was
did
several.
not know this was a thing until
This was
relatively
not taught
recently.
in mainstream American history,
Yeah,
and I'm sure it was on Twitter. I found out about it. So when I saw this, I knew it was based on a real thing.
yeah.
I
I
think
did too, but
a lot of
only
people,
because it was within the last couple years.
yeah, I think a lot of people didn't know it was real, and B, I think some people probably don't even know it's real.
Yeah. Like because the show is speculative, I guess you could
Exactly.
imagine that they
It
made
feels
this
like a
up.
an alternate history.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy to start here, but
Yeah.
based on where they're going, it
I love
makes
that moment when he tells her not to shoot that guy.
yeah,
Because this whole thing of every single decision you make is super important from
yeah,
second to second.
yeah. It also reminds me of Lost in a way, like starting on this moment of like
Yep.
very high intensity.
Yep. Again, the same thing. Every decision you make is super critical,
Yeah,
moment to moment. Yep.
yeah. And like the decisions they're making are going to affect the way things happen
Yep.
going in the future
Yeah.
in very large ways.
Yeah. I just think you've never seen this tragedy depicted on screen before, as far as I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, I've never seen it.
And for this to be the place that it starts, which has
Yeah,
nothing to do with what we know about the Watchmen, I thought
right.
was brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you're left really even after the pilot of still wondering how this really connects, besides
Yeah.
setting the context of the town.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where I was like, okay, surely this will come into play.
This what?
Like this kid basically, like
Oh, yeah.
because he's so young.
Yep.
I was thinking like, well, he's gonna have to be like super old if
I
they're
thought
setting
they
this in
yeah.
the present.
I figured out who he was before they revealed it, but I was
Yeah,
thinking like time-wise, he's got to be pretty old.
yeah. But I was
And then the
thinking
bomb
that'll
goes
probably
off.
be if they're gonna tie it in with the
Yeah.
present, it's gonna be with this
I
kid.
also love that moment too because he knows his parents aren't coming, so he
Yeah,
doesn't have to do that thing of waiting for them.
right.
So he actually got to see that they're gone and he's on his
Yeah.
own. And I find this cut really interesting because it's not
Yeah.
clear what happened,
It's very out of context. Yeah, you don't. I guess you're
and they're
supposed to
all sort of
experience it like the way
thrown
he
from
did.
the car almost, and
Yeah,
maybe another explosion or something.
yeah,
And I'm still not sure who that was addressed to.
yeah, yeah. I don't think we know from this. Like the people driving the car, like
I
I
would
really don't
assume it
know.
was whoever he was going
Supposed to go to.
go
Yeah,
to, but yeah,
yeah. I think we don't know who this baby is either.
no. Which wouldn't be too much younger than him, so it
Right.
would still be a pretty old
Would have to
person.
be someone fairly old. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure if the baby matters, but I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I guess I assume since they put the baby in here, it would come into play somehow, but it might not be that we see the baby, but they just reference it somehow. But
Hmm.
I just felt like there was some point to this. I don't even know whose baby that is. Like
It's the
just
people in the car who were driving the car's
it's
baby,
the
I
people who are
think.
driving the car. Okay.
Yeah. This is great.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I remember seeing the shot going, what's that shadow? And then it's like, oh, geez. Okay.
Oh. Oh, this is the title.
Yeah.
I think I didn't get that when I watched this the first time.
You thought it
I
was just
just
a
thought it
weird
was some
phrase.
weird like stylized thing.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a great intro.
Yeah.
I love that thing about the battery. It helps us understand we're sort of future.
Yeah. Yeah, I still had no idea what this show was supposed to be at this point.
Hmm.
It's like, okay, another out of
I
context
don't think you
intro.
know what the show is even by the end of the pilot.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But I feel like there's at least some elements that
Yeah, you
I could
could.
sort of see
You,
going
yeah,
forward.
you understand the basic elements by the end for sure.
Exactly.
Because I think
Whereas,
once we this whole thing was very well done when we don't see the cop's face until he mentions show me your face,
right.
because so that's another our second big element of
Yeah.
this world being different than ours.
Just so you know, present day, more or
Yeah.
less.
Hmm. Yeah, you're like, what? Yeah, there's so many details here that are really interesting. This whole thing of needing to request the gun,
Yeah, there's a lot of exposition buried in this scene.
and like he hated the fact that he has this guy on the other end of the phone
Right.
who's giving him a problem about it.
Yeah, we meet that guy later.
Oh, do we?
I think so. Yeah, Panda. Yeah, yeah. We totally meet that
Oh,
character later. Not like a lot, but
okay. Well, to me, the biggest thing that's different than this, obviously, you have the sort of basic race reversal here, the black cop
mhm.
stopping the white guy. But then
Yeah.
you have the like how hard it is to have use of force here, how
Right.
hard how many restrictions there are and protocols to
Yeah.
get this gun, which is not in our real world.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's a dramatic illustration.
Hmm.
And like I did not expect this when I was watching it the first time,
Hmm.
but watching the scene this time, like it
Hmm.
seems sinister to me.
Yeah.
Like I read it completely differently
The thing
because I
I
didn't really
like,
know where it was going the first time.
yeah, this is the extra thing I like about this.
Oh yeah, yeah.
A lesser writer would have just had it be a truck full of weapons.
Right.
He was lying about the lettuce. But here's that Lindelof thing where it was both things.
Exactly. Yeah, like you
He
were
actually,
right, but it was lettuce.
yeah, exactly. I told you it was lettuce. And what's interesting about this is I'm still not sure with the way that they set up the history, how we're supposed to take the racial dynamics here.
Mhm.
Is this because they mentioned that this is Black Oklahoma later?
Right.
And I don't understand. I didn't catch if this was supposed to be the original version of Oklahoma. It was always a black version because of the history of how they set up the town,
Right.
or is it just like our world where the original version is a white cast and
And
this
it's
is
been
just a
like
black?
reappropriated
Yeah.
or
So I really
something.
couldn't decide what we're supposed to think about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think they really say.
Mm-hmm.
I assumed it was the same, but yeah, there's it's not really safe to do that.
Yeah. Like, did the population of Tulsa become primarily black after the events of the riots there and
Mhm.
the Wall Street, the Black Wall Street thing?
Yeah. It's definitely a great idea to like if you're gonna set the show in Oklahoma, which is already a bit strange,
Mm-hmm.
to use the old musical. Oh,
Yeah.
I think this is Looking Glass.
Okay. Yeah. I love this his mask.
Yeah.
And that was one of the interesting things is there's several different ways people cover their face, and I don't understand why they're different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's like the simple sort of like
Mm-hmm. It's like the
like
regular beat cop thing with the
yeah,
yellow bottom face covering, and then this guy has his whole face.
crazy
There's another
mask.
guy in like a
Yeah.
bear costume later or
Yeah,
something.
that's Panda.
Oh, that's Panda.
I
Oh,
think so. Yeah.
makes sense then.
Oh, Don Johnson, what are your secrets?
I love seeing Don Johnson here because I haven't seen him in anything in a long time, and I was never a big Don Johnson fan, but I think this was a cool casting choice.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I agree. It definitely threw me when he died. There's one
Spoiler
scene where
alert!
when I
Jeez.
saw it again, um, I was like, "Oh, I should have known he was going to die from this scene,"
The
but I
scene
didn't expect it.
when he like steals the show and he's singing and dancing.
Yes.
But there was some Caesar dressing. I love that line. Pull your face down and so I can tie my tie in the reflection of your crazy mask. Yeah, that's insane. I wonder how he breathes in that thing, though. I do wonder,
Yeah,
production wise, like how he breathes in it, or if he's holding his breath through
the whole
shots.
time. Yeah, yeah. I feel like this music is really,
1970s horror.
yeah, yeah. It's got this old school vibe. It's
Dude,
weird
this is like a complete 1970s horror right here.
because it's like a contemporary story,
Yep,
like very much so. But
yep.
yeah, I think it's interesting to go for that retro
Well,
vibe.
the first piece of music when they did the time jump was like a contemporary hip hop song, but then
Right,
they have
right.
this sinister music, which I don't understand why this is the context, but it works.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't really make sense even for this scene.
I also don't understand why Don Johnson doesn't wear a face mask. Why it's okay for everyone to know
Mm-hmm.
who he is,
Yeah.
which clearly is a problem later.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe he should have.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe like the lead. I don't. What is his position? A chief? Like, what is he supposed to be? I'm
Didn't
not even
catch it.
sure.
Yeah,
Sheriff?
commissioner.
Yeah, like maybe that person isn't supposed to wear a mask. I don't know.
Mhm. So here's some more world building about the
Right.
police having to come up with cover stories about what they do.
Yeah. It does play like a scene where he should be dead, but he's not.
Yeah.
Here's the Dr. Manhattan
Oh,
thing.
I read that and forgot about it. And I didn't catch him in that image, actually. I only saw
Yeah,
the
I
explosion.
didn't either. For the record, I
Wow.
was
Well, that's
informed
cool.
because it's pretty fast.
I did not understand this scene. What she's doing here with the egg whites.
I guess like her cover story is that she runs a bakery.
Well, no, I just didn't. Oh, there's a smiley face. Didn't catch that
Yeah.
before. I didn't catch what she's saying about the separation of the eggs and the whites and how one does the thing and does the
Yeah,
other. I
I
didn't.
think she's just talking about how like they maintain their separateness.
Hmm.
Like there's like a membrane there or whatever that, but if
Gotcha.
you break the thing then they run together.
Hmm. That sounds like a racial metaphor.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't really think about that at all, but yeah. Oh yeah, this whole thing about like Saigon, like
Yep.
that's a world building
Oh,
thing.
here's Robert Redford. Yeah, President Redford in the background. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting backstory too for her character.
Yeah. Yeah, it threw me, but it was like, okay, this is like
She's wearing this
alternate universe.
Asian vest thing too.
Yeah.
Liar. I thought it was really weird when she keeps looking at this boy who turns out to be her son.
Right.
I'm like, why is he like so sinister?
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, that kid looks like someone they would cast like grow up to be Michael Myers or something.
Yeah, he's the guy who, yeah, he's the kid who's killing people.
Yeah.
And I love this where like she's TMI. She doesn't for whatever reason she doesn't understand what's appropriate. I don't understand why, but
Mm-hmm.
that was interesting. Although what's interesting is the bakery's not open yet.
Right.
I love that word.
Topher.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Good first date tips. Oh, so this was the one of the craziest things that happens this episode.
Oh yeah, this is definitely one of the craziest things. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is like the most like they say it's like some kind of dimensional
Yeah.
rift, or I forget how
Yep.
they phrase it.
Something like that.
But yeah, this definitely threw me.
I didn't understand why they were baby squids. I didn't
Yeah,
understand why they were squids at all.
yeah.
And it's just like, we'll just deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you
So
just kind of gotta
gross.
like wait it out, I
So
guess.
awful.
Yeah, it's really terrible.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me of Magnolia in a way.
Yeah. And it's very quick.
Yeah,
And I guess they melt or something. I don't know what's
it
happening.
seems that way, but like, yeah, I don't know. Can they like not be alive because they're not in the water?
I guess they. I don't know if they're dying because yeah. See, they kind of melt. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's just kind of a passing thing.
Mm-hmm. And then we just talk about our lives.
Yep. Rinse it off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I don't understand why their kids are white.
Yeah, I think that's an elephant in the room that they'll have to explain to some point.
Yep.
They don't explain it this episode.
Mm-mm.
Uh-oh. Gotta go to the bakery.
Gotta bake a cake. Little sci-fi.
Mm-hmm.
So here's our big connection to the backstory of Watchmen World, this American
Yeah.
Hero Story thing.
Yeah, I guess they turned it into a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
which is very meta.
Yeah. You know, this show, particularly this how they're characterizing Tulsa, you know, a large black population, this in this sort of alternate future or history thing, reminds me of the idea that the Game of Thrones creators want to do at HBO, the Confederate series.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like this is the good version of that idea.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it's why it's palpable. You know, I don't think anyone wanted to watch the thing that they had in mind. And I'm glad I can watch this version
Yeah,
where,
I would definitely rather watch this. Yeah, I
yeah,
agree 100% there. Yeah, there are ways to do alternate realities.
hmm and there's a very particular thing that happens at the end I want to bring up
Yeah,
that
so
I
that was
think
the introduction of who I
is
guess is the kid from the opening
yeah,
scene.
yeah. It's curious why he's hanging out there.
Yeah, it is. It is. What does he know about the
Yeah.
bakery? What does he know about anything? What does he know about the
So
sheriff or
all of a
whatever?
sudden she's in a 1980s action show. Like
Yeah, yeah,
seriously.
yeah. Yeah, it's like Miami Vice or
Yeah, it's like
something.
Knight Rider, but
Magnum
you
PI.
know,
Yeah, and Knight Rider.
I guess her name is Sister Knight. That's
Is that
her.
what it is? Okay.
Yeah, her
Yeah.
character name, her vigilante
Yeah.
name.
Yeah,
But
this is
listen, I
good.
love Regina King. I think she's one of my favorite actresses. And then you're gonna have her kick ass like this. Like I'm all about it.
Yeah.
Also,
Yes.
she looks like a Matrix character, so I think
Yeah,
she should be in the
yeah.
next Matrix
The
movie.
long jacket. Yeah,
This
it's very
shot in particular
Matrix.
with the green hue, because when they're
Yeah.
in the Matrix, it has a
Right.
green tint, and this you know, looks like the Matrix.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I'll watch whatever she's in dressed
Yeah,
like
so she
that.
has like the lower face mask, but also
Yeah,
this like paint over her
yep,
eyes.
she's got both. So this was super interesting. I love that he's standing outside. I don't know why he's not in the room with
Yeah,
everyone
that's
else,
kind of weird.
but I loved it. It was so specific.
Yeah,
It's almost like he's not supposed to watch this video. I don't know.
right.
I do like this idea of this strange white supremacist group that is wearing Rorschach masks. I don't know why Rorschach becomes a white supremacist hero,
Yeah, yeah.
but hopefully we'll find that out.
I feel like they should explain that. Yeah. There's definitely a watch thing in this
There it
episode.
is. There are they who watches the Watchmen.
But that made it seem like he was just waiting for his entrance.
Yeah, see, there's like he's got a red mask and
Yeah. Nixonville.
mm, yeah, she's got him her own thing,
Oh, right.
almost like a Middle Eastern looking thing.
Yeah.
And then what's
There's
his deal?
Panda.
I didn't catch. Yeah, like
It's like
why?
normal office worker, but with a panda head.
Yeah, and everyone's just like, this is fine, and nobody likes him.
Right.
And it's like a gross mask. It's like old and
Yeah, it's like
gross.
dirty. It's weird.
Is he like
Oh,
Russian?
he's like, yeah, he's like Russian or something. Yeah. There's definitely an accent there.
It's a very bad mistake.
The Latin thing also reminded me of Lost.
Yeah.
Though
And
it
is
might
it
just be
just
from the comic.
Tulsa? Are the police like this just in Tulsa? Or is
Yeah, that's
it
not clear.
everywhere? Or I do want like just a show that's her being this character. It's like a normal procedural.
Right. Right.
It's just Oklahoma. Probably the best line in the episode. The pod reminds me of Dharma, the
Yeah.
brainwashing thing with
Yeah, the
Carl.
Carl thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good point. Very similar.
What is he
Can you
wearing?
wipe your face through that?
What was that about?
Or is it just to make it
Is it
shiny?
porous and he's sweating through it?
Yeah, just it's a weird gesture.
Yeah, I feel like they couldn't do the Rorschach mask thing, so they got this version, which is similar.
Yeah.
His things, the reflections move, like his mask moved in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Little Trent Reznor here. Oh, Nixon on the wow.
Yeah. Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, there it is.
Trans-dimensional attacks. That's what they called it.
Mm-hmm. And this is just a weird and interesting bit of like how they do investigations. It's it's different than a lie detector test.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested why how did this come about?
Yeah.
How are you like, what we should do? Let's make a pod.
Yeah, they just like flash things and look at their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even about the questions necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary nun for the record.
Yeah, Sister Night. Oh, that's right. She like, beats him with the rosaries.
Oh yeah, I forgot about this scene. This is like
Uh,
crazy.
uh.
It's like, what is going on in there?
Mm-hmm.
There's like blood flowing. Like
Apparently,
Jesus.
this was a reference to the movie that I didn't remember, but I still don't remember. But apparently, this shot of the blood in the water is some reference to the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this whole thing
Oh,
here.
it's what? That's not all blood.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I think that's yeah.
Okay, that makes more
Yeah,
sense.
see, there's blood
I
in
was
there.
like, that is so much blood. Holy shit. Okay, that makes more sense. Okay, so this is the big action set piece.
Mm-hmm. professional cow actors.
Oh yeah, this watch battery thing. Not 100% clear what that's
Yeah,
about.
I guess we never really find out what they need the batteries for, but they're particular batteries.
Yeah. There's something that's like not widely available, I guess. So
Another
maybe there's
watch
something with them.
reference.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
A lot of watch batteries.
Classic suicide pills.
Mm-hmm.
Classic like machine
High
gun. I don't know
caliber.
what you call
Yeah.
that thing. Like, I guess they don't care about their cows very much.
No, I think at this point they're not in it for the cattle money.
It's like the cows really get like the worst of it here.
Yeah.
Oh right, they got the plane.
That's not vegan. Well, I'm like, why did she just shoot him? Okay, so that's the guy from the beginning.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He spit it out all right.
I'm not
Is
sure what
that
that shot
Black
was
Captain
about.
America? Yeah, I couldn't figure that out. It looked like Black Captain America, but I couldn't really
It went
tell.
by so fast I
Yeah, I guess
couldn't.
this wouldn't be a Marvel thing. I don't know. Under them? That would mean that they're above them.
Uh-oh. They're not in a van?
The Sky Van.
That's what I thought when it started. Because that's like the trope for a scene like that.
Mm-hmm. There they are. In the Owlmobile.
But yeah, it's this weird, like, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a steampunk.
Yeah, it is, definitely. So, like, I mean, so far, like, the sheriff seems unimpeachable.
That's That was the weirdest thing when it's like a flamethrower on top. Like, did not
Yeah,
expect a
that's the
flamethrower.
weapon it has, I guess.
Yeah. What do you say? The sheriff is what?
Like he doesn't seem to have done anything questionable.
What do you mean?
I just mean that, the episode's gonna end with his death, and it calls into question like what he's done or what he's connected to or why he's killed.
Oh, it
So
makes sense.
I'm just
Something
looking
happens
for,
later.
is it explained in the episode?
Something happens later that makes me connect why he died to what happens. I forgot what it is
Okay.
now, but
It
I can
hasn't
still
happened
see it.
yet.
No.
Because I was just saying in that scene, like it seemed like he was very sincerely trying to stop the plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like so
You
far
mean why he dies from the writer standpoint or from within the story standpoint?
from within the story.
Okay. I think someone finds out his identity, and
But
I think my idea was that because this group is resurging and he has helped take down their group, that's why they retaliate against him.
okay, so you don't think the guy who was there is the one who actually killed him?
No, the guy who just died.
No, no, no. The guy who's there, like the guy who is presumably the kid from the opening scene. Okay, whatever. We'll talk about it when we get there.
Oh, Louis Gossett Jr.
Yes, Louis Gossett
No,
Jr.
I
Yeah.
don't think he killed him.
You don't think he killed him? Because in
No.
that scene, in his first scene, he's like, "You think I could lift 200 pounds?" Like it seemed to me like that could be a setup for the idea that he did it.
Mm.
Because that's what it would require, like
No, he's not the
hanging
guy.
from a
I don't think
tree.
he's the one. No, I think the white supremacist group killed him.
Okay.
Uh, and I don't think he's the one who like busted his tires and because he's
Okay.
too
See, I thought he laid
frail.
the thing and I thought he lifted him because he can lift 200 pounds. I thought that was clues. I don't
Okay,
know.
well, I'll keep that in mind as I watch this. But I did not
All
think
right.
he. Yeah, I didn't think he killed him.
Okay. 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 So that's why I was trying to find like something going on with the sheriff where it's like,
Mm-hmm.
is there some questionable thing in his family or whatever? There's a shot. There's an ominous shot of a photograph later. Okay. Sorry. I just got to acknowledge
Yeah,
what's
Jeremy
happening on
Irons.
screen right now.
Yeah, I
Like,
didn't understand any of this. This
this
is a
like
strange cut.
Jeremy Irons like quasi Downton Abbey like
Yeah.
scene that we cut
Well,
to.
and it's not even. It's not like overtly sexual. You think she's doing one thing, but she's just
Mm-hmm.
actually massaging his leg.
Yeah.
But then they're both like in love with him, clearly,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
or it's
yeah.
just the classic British fealty or something. I don't know, but
Exactly. Yeah. That's why it reminds me of Downton Abbey. It's like,
yeah.
yeah, this like weird bond of
Mm-hmm. You're my
servant and
master, so I love
aristocrat.
you.
Yeah. This
Yeah.
is just so
And this
like
weird cake that he
this
has
is
one
very
bite of.
Lindelof right here, like just cutting to this out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is this? And this episode
And it
makes
was a
no connection.
honeycomb. Yeah, it was like, how do you make a honeycomb into a cake? And there's a horseshoe.
Yeah, I know. Like,
Oh, Mr. Phillips.
and it's like he just realized it, like that's weird.
Well, it's like he was like, oh, I thought you would want a horseshoe
Yeah, like why though? Why did you think
because it's
that?
lucky. I don't know.
Like, that's just
And then he
so.
makes an expression. Is it not good? I mean, it is a honeycomb. I don't even
Yeah,
get it. Yeah, there's
yeah,
all kinds of questions here.
yeah. This is definitely, aside from the squid, one of the weirdest parts of the episode.
Yeah, and I don't think Jeremy Irons comes back.
No, no, this is it. And there's no clear tie-in except for the like watch thing.
Yeah, it's a very nice watch though.
Oh yeah.
Like when he opens it, it's like, yeah, that looks exquisite. Yeah, that's weird.
That's very weird.
Which is super weird.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's some watch thing, but yeah, I don't know what to do with that. And
Maybe
that was
that play
it.
will come back in handy. It'll come back, or yeah. I love this whole thing with the Coke. I love that nobody cares. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, he's got a big secret, and
Yeah,
that'll be the drama. Is his secret Coke habit? Like the
right.
adults know, like it's not a thing.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I guess that's the first time you see him doing something like a little bit questionable.
Hmm.
So
But
maybe they're starting to build.
their reaction to it makes you go, oh, it's not a big deal.
Right.
And that was great because you think, oh, it's just a secret that the cops know that he does
Mm-hmm.
this. But then later, the wife is like, yeah, it was coming out of your nose. And it's like, oh, okay, everybody knows. This could be a scene from Leftovers.
Yeah, definitely.
Their hearts weren't in it. So this is the scene where you know he's going to die later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also something a little bit Leland Palmer about this.
Hmm.
Weird, like,
A guy hopped up on drugs who's like being
yeah,
manic and singing. Yeah.
show
Oh, okay.
tunes, like,
He's going to die later. Hmm. There's a ticking sound. Ticking down to his death. That foreshadowing.
yeah, that's a good point. The ticking is interesting.
Oh, you know what? That's what the white supremacists did. They were tick tock, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
That's
they
probably what that
were.
is. Probably connecting it to that. Yeah, I think that's what that's about. Not in the old store.
Don't you know that? Well, whatever. Exposition.
Yeah, yeah, they're calling it back to that as the ticking happens.
Yeah. Very
He
lost.
just did it.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, this is so. This was. I'm glad they did this so that anyone who's watching is like, where are the Watchmen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, where are the characters I've heard of?
Yeah.
And they go, okay, they are a part of this world. They're just not the main characters.
Right.
Yeah, he literally just said it. Chance of reprisal.
Yeah, that's true. Oh well.
Oh,
It's been a tough week.
yeah.
Everybody needs a little cocaine after a tough
He did
week.
just like crash in a owl plane.
That's true.
That was an interesting line. He's like, I'll get one of the boys to do it, but he does it.
Yeah, you're right. Okay, so this little picture thing was the other thing that made me think there was some like past family connection or something is the reason he
Mm,
was killed.
mm. It did get ominous there.
Yeah.
I thought it was just like, oh, he's a lawman because his daddy was a lawman.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're back to the 70s horror music.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
It's like when they're driving at night on the road. Yeah, it's interesting that he didn't get one of the boys to drive him. And I also thought it was weird that he wasn't immediately suspicious that he might be in danger when this
Yeah.
happened. He's just kind of like, oh, let me go check it out, like a
Mm-hmm.
horror movie by, like not
Right.
really understanding. Like as soon as he sees his tires, he should have been like, okay, problem.
Yeah.
And then he sees this thing and he's still like not alarmed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I would think it would be like call for backup immediately.
Yeah. Now the other thing that could connect to the sinister thing with that picture is maybe he was playing both sides. Like
Mm-hmm.
his dad used to be part of that group or something,
That's
or
what I was wondering.
yeah, like and they killed him because he's a double agent and he went too far or something in taking them down.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Yeah.
is ripe to have this ostensibly good guy for Regina King to find out that he was a bad guy,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that like there's maybe secret supremacists in the police force or something, or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could definitely see them doing that.
so back to your thing about Louis Gossett Jr. Like, how does he know who she is, and then how does he know that Don Johnson is in the tree?
Mm-hmm.
I
If
love
he's not the
this.
one who did it.
Yeah, I love that whole like shotgun
Yeah,
every
that's
dead
like
thing. I also like that he's not that the husband isn't in the dark about who she really is. We don't
right.
have to play that game.
Yeah. 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 In the earlier scene it was a little ambiguous.
Hmm.
But part of that was just we didn't know as the audience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would definitely say in terms of plot, like the main plot, this is the most unclear thing in the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that Don Johnson's dad might have been involved
Oh,
in
even the
the
light is like
light.
what Don Johnson saw.
Yeah, that's true. I thought this also called back to the light from the raid at the cattle farm. Um, so we're supposed to
Oh,
think the white supremacists are here
mm-hmm. I do think you're
because
supposed to think that.
they saw Don Johnson had a strobe light, and that was just a constant light. But
True.
I don't think there's any way this guy can be bad, though. I don't think there's any way he's a
I don't
bad
think
guy.
he's bad necessarily, but I think it's just a question of why he
Yeah,
did
it could be
this.
that
That's what
Don
I had in
Johnson's
mind at
dad
least.
could have been involved in the
Mm-hmm.
Tulsa riot,
That's what I was thinking, or even
and then
grandfather, because that was a
and
long
then
time ago.
yeah. Well, he may have been young, very young back then,
Right, right.
and then Louis Gossett Jr. is getting revenge on his family line or something.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way he could have strung this guy up and did all this stuff and by himself. I just don't think so. Unless he's got magic powers.
Yeah, I don't
And
know. It
the real
seems like
question is
that's what
why
happened to me, but I agree that it's not clear cut. It
the
definitely
real
isn't
question is
necessarily.
why would he present himself to Regina King this way?
Yeah.
Like why would he take credit and show her like why would he make himself seem like the likely suspect, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, turning on the light, the phone call, all that stuff.
Mhm. Back to the sheriff's
There it
badge.
is. You're right.
And then we get the Watchman callback with the blood on the smiley face, but now it's
Oh
the
man.
blood on the badge.
Yeah.
So I thought was a nice touch.
Symmetry.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch.
It is.
Bloop.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like he was chief of police.
Okay. Okay. That
All
makes sense.
right. Yeah, I mean, it was well done. There's a lot of interesting questions that it raises. Some nice dramatic things, setting up some cool characters. The world seems interesting. I don't. It didn't hook me in terms of like I got any sense of what the long term story is or like why I should keep watching. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like oh we lost right. We have to get off
Yeah.
the island.
Right. Right. Right.
So it didn't
Or
really do
like for me,
that.
like what's the monster?
Yes.
Who's the French woman on the message? Why is
Hmm.
there a polar bear here? I
Yeah.
guess it has some things that are a little bit along that line, but I agree that it's not directly obvious what the point of the show is.
Yeah.
There's a conflict with this like seventh cat who I feel like they're almost like the guilty remnant in a
Yeah.
way, or
Hmm.
I guess like the others.
Hmm.
um does it even matter, like how, I don't know, like how interesting can they really be?
Yep.
So then like, I mean, no offense,
Yeah.
but like it's just such a yeah, just obviously like horrible group of people that it's sort of like, I don't know. I feel like the ending opens the door to maybe a more complicated plot than it seemed to be,
Hmm.
which I think is interesting. And I think for me, that's the main thing I want to know in the next episode, or the main reason I want to watch the next episode is to understand that ending.
Yep.
Like that was the thing where I was like, oh, what? Huh? Who? Why? How? Like that's definitely the thing that hooked me the most in terms of going forward. But
Hmm.
as an episode like contained, yeah, like it was
I
definitely enjoyable. The world's interesting, the actors are good, the production was good. um it was not the most obvious Watchmen
Yep.
pilot that I would have expected on
Probably
any
the least
level.
obvious.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this really hit a sweet spot for me, without it being like completely mind-blowing, but I'd give it a B plus, like really entertaining and interesting. Even rewatching it the second time, I was still involved in all the scenes. Um, so I think it's a really good pilot going, making me want to keep watching going forward. And the thing I wanted to say though, there's two things I want to say actually. So one, in terms of it having any relation to our current political climate, I think this is the only thing I've seen where, at least so far, I felt like I could watch it and get some things that relate to our current political climate, but without it being completely disheartening and dystopian and just
Right.
making me not want to watch it because it's so tied to our current political climate, right? So it hit that
Yeah.
kind of sweet spot there.
Yeah,
And the
yeah,
other
yeah.
thing I wanted to mention was, as a black person my entire life, um,
Not
um,
temporarily.
no, 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 it's been a long time, and it's very hard to deal with Black history in America because it's has so many tragedies, and you find yourself in this catch 22 of wanting to know the history, but that comes at an emotional cost. And
Hmm.
one of the things I liked about this pilot is a starting with the Tulsa riot, it was depicted in a way that was realistic, eh, without it being too gruesome and too there's a word that's coming to me, sensational, is that the
Yeah,
word?
yeah, yeah. Not
um
just like excessively dwelling on the
Exploitive,
suffering.
exploitative, yeah. And then the parallel to that, the end shot, I thought, we're used to lynching, obviously being historically of Black people, right? And
Hmm.
so I thought seeing this white man hung called into question or brought to your mind our real world history of lynching, but actually spared me in particular of having to see a Black person lynched,
Hmm.
which would have been getting to that emotional place that's sort of too much.
Yeah.
Not that seeing anyone lynched is good, but I
Right.
think that was a very specific choice, and I guess my whole point here is that the way they depicted these issues was really smart and
Hmm.
really delicate and deliberate, and gave me a really good sense of how cognizant they are of the material that they're dealing with.
Hmm.
And that because a lot of times it can be too much, to see, even if the story needs it, right, or
Yeah.
demands it, it can still be too much. And that'll be the thing I kind of want to see how they deal with going forward. How do you walk that line between depicting these gruesome things that are real or connected to our reality, without it being so much that it just replicates the horror, right? To where you don't even, why do I need to watch this? I know what the real story is,
Right.
and that's a really hard thing to do. And I thought, one of my big takeaways from this pilot was like, Damon Lindelof really likes Black people, because I
Hmm.
thought he took great care of depicting these characters, and also just from like season 2 of Leftovers,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I just thought he's it, it's an interesting thing to do, but I thought this proved to me the way, obviously Regina King being like the star, but like the context of this pilot tells me that he is very interested in telling stories from the Black person's lens, which is a very particular thing to do.
Hmm.
And so far they're doing it well. And so that'll be a thing I look forward. I'm going to be looking out going forward is how do they do that?
Yeah.
And also how do they not make the white characters just they're the bad ones
Right.
always,
Right.
because you don't necessarily want it to be that kind of binary.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
You even the white supremacist characters, how are they going to make whatever goals they have or motivations they have. They don't have to make them empathetic or sympathetic, but at least realistic
Mm-hmm.
and have a point larger than they're just racist.
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's I guess the subject matter here they didn't have to take on, right? And that's what's
No.
interesting is they didn't have to
No.
have this context to tell a Watchmen story. So the fact that they
Yeah.
chose to do that, like the most fraught context you probably could have, um, the racial lens,
Yeah.
means that it was that critical to them, and it also tells me that the story that they have in mind is that specific, that
Yeah.
that was the way they had to tell it.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 and it's not, I mean, the comics, the movie or whatever, nothing like that in terms of I mean,
Hmm.
it's political, but there is not a racial angle there at all.
Yeah.
It's pretty much all white characters if I remember right. Are there any
Hmm.
characters who are white in the movie? I
Not
can't
that I remember.
remember any. So yeah, it's like so not that at all. It's not the obvious thing to do, um, but it actually fits. I think it makes sense
Hmm.
within the world, and finding a way to make that work is interesting. It's like, yeah, I guess I appreciate the fact that it's trying to take on something serious in the context of a comic book adaptation, but yeah, it's not just I mean, it's not the same for me, but nonetheless, like if you're talking about I mean, I feel this way generally speaking about any kind of depiction of, just like real life atrocities, I think even if I'm not personally connected to it, it's just not necessarily something I want to watch.
Hmm.
Most
Hmm.
usually, I don't know, like Schindler's List or something. It's like
Yeah.
this. It could just be like wallowing in misery. That's
Hmm.
so. I mean, I don't mind watching stories that depict suffering or whatever, but when it's tied up with this real thing, it has this extra level
Hmm.
that really kind of can make me not even want to engage with it.
Especially if it's not saying something new about it. If it's
Yeah,
just telling you the thing you already know, it's kind of like, well, why do I need to relive this?
yeah.
Which again, why the Tulsa riot opening was interesting because it's something a lot of people didn't know about.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
honestly, I feel like they could go back to that again because it wasn't clear what was really happening and why, right?
Right.
You got the
Yeah.
general sense, but it still was just on the surface of like, well, who really started this and what was really the problem and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
far did this go and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like with Louis Gossett Jr. being a character,
Hmm.
from who survived that and who's, positioned in the ending as being a significant figure
Yeah,
in the plot going forward. I feel like they will address that on
yeah.
some way, um, because I think yeah, it's it was actually shocking to me when I learned that that was a thing. Like what? I mean, not that I didn't know anything bad ever happened along those lines, but it
Hmm.
was really extreme.
Yeah.
I I was like to the extent that you know it just seemed like how could this be a thing that I never
The
heard of
more
before?
extreme it is, and the more it makes the powers that be look bad, the less you'll know about it, and that's literally just how it goes. That's just it. I mean, they have the most incentive to hide it from people when it's the worst thing ever. And that's why you don't know about it. That's why it's not taught in, and you see that a lot.
Yeah,
When people want to rewrite history books and school books and textbooks, and they want to literally whitewash the history. They want to say, "Oh, the slaves, they were happy to have the jobs, or they were treated very well, or they didn't miss their homeland, or whatever."
yeah,
And those types of things, and why would a predominantly white culture want to tell their predominantly white children of the horrors that their white ancestors committed, right? Like, obviously they wouldn't want to do that. They want to have the rosy thing so you feel like, oh, I'm validated in my existence. I'm not complicit in any crimes. My
Yeah.
grandfather was fine. He was great.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah, I guess it's like what I learned was very generic in a way. It's like
mhm.
there was slavery, there was
Yep.
lynchings, I got that, there was various levels of
Yep.
discrimination and oppression and so
Mhm.
on.
Jim Crow
Um
and
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I
yep.
knew, but like, and I know about like some certain like specific incidents, but it's just the scale is just so I don't know.
Mhm.
I was just like type it in, like, okay, there's a whole page about it. You could read on and on. It's like I don't know. Yeah,
Mhm.
I get it, but I guess it's just very naive of
Well,
me
yeah, and there's
to
like, where
be
was the movie
surprised.
about this, right? Where was the Academy Award
Yeah,
winning
yeah, yeah,
movie about
exactly.
this event?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like it's about time. Like, and it's weird that this would be the show.
That this
Like,
is where he likes to, and interesting that it's Tulsa too. It's interesting that he did that with Leftovers, where he likes a small town, and it's
oh, you're
almost like an
right.
island. It's
You're
like,
right.
here's this thing that's isolated from the larger culture,
Yeah.
where I can go in and talk about a story that has a particular old history that relates to the new story I'm telling, and yeah, it's very related.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's got his things,
I
man.
didn't
He's
think
got his
about that.
things.
Yeah, even Jordan, like being in Texas, it's like not that
Yep.
far away. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good point. That's a good
Mhm.
point. I didn't realize he had that like weird
Yeah.
like Southern
Uh-huh.
fixation.
Uh-huh.
Uh, I wouldn't have said that before, but now that you mention it,
Now it's a
yeah, that's
pattern.
weird. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to see where the story goes, and and again, I think like a lot of times I know I can tell when I'm confident in the director or the writer's vision when there's questions I have and I believe I'll get the answers to them, and I'm not super anxious that I don't understand everything moment to moment. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt like the world building here is in that category of like, there's things I don't get, but I'm okay not knowing it right away, because I feel like
Right.
that they have a plan and they're painting a picture, and they're going to tell me what I need to know when I need to know it, and I can just sit back and relax and absorb it. and
Mm-hmm.
and most shows and movies don't get to that level because they don't have anyone at the helm who's competent that way. So
Right.
I think that was really palpable here.
Yeah. 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 I mean, to me, it's just great to have a show that's on now
Mm-hmm.
that that I actually want to watch. I don't know. I've been in this mode of watching old shows for a
Mm-hmm.
while, and not being into new shows that much. I mean, like Game of Thrones ended, and it was just like, I mean,
Yeah.
and that was like a fucking train wreck. It was
Yeah.
horrible, but it was a show I was watching.
Yeah.
Like a current show I was watching, and I mean, with the David Lindelof connection, it's kind of tied to the old days, um, but it's also, it doesn't feel like a show that would have been made, in 2004, for example.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's current, and yet, like you said, it's not so current that it's like literally depicting, the world of Trump or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's removed enough while at the same time having
Yeah.
having some relevance.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a good
interesting.
balance. They had a
Yeah.
plan. They clearly like knew what they wanted to do, and there's definitely a very um, palpable level of confidence in the story that
Mm-hmm.
is compelling to watch. And yeah, no, I was really pleased. And when I first heard about the Watchmen, I was
Yeah.
like not excited about this show at all.
Yeah.
It's way better than I was expecting it to be.
Yeah.
Like, I thought it was just going to be an adaptation of the comics, and it just seemed
Mm-hmm.
like boring to me. I didn't like the movie that much. It was like whatever.
Yeah.
This is like probably the in a believable universe, the best possible version of this that I could have expected.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm
Which
very
was to
happy with it.
leave the Watchmen story behind and start something new.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
works
it's
for
the best
me.
idea. I mean, it worked on The Leftovers too, it's like
Yep.
that can be a good approach sometimes. Don't just adapt the thing, like use it as a point to depart and make your own
Hmm.
thing.
Yeah, so I'm curious what the big Lindelofian mystery things are going to happen, and what's he going to try to get us to believe in fantastical things, and
Mhm.
the whole transdimensional attack squid thing. I'm curious if that's going to ramp up, and
Mhm.
and are they really gonna, any of the old superhero characters from the Watchmen story, or how do they relate to this world, and are they going to come back? Are they in New York or something, or
Mhm.
are they going to come to Tulsa? Is the story going to stay in Tulsa?
Mhm.
And I am curious about the larger world. Um, how it's different or similar to our current world. Because they did a
Yeah.
good job of focusing on Tulsa, but I'm curious how the rest of it plays out, and the whole Louis Gossett Jr. thing, and what his character is all about, and
Mhm.
um, I mean, what could
Yeah.
he really do or know, right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, I like that. It's like you get the scene with the kid in the first part. You
Mm-hmm.
get that one scene outside the bakery,
Yep.
and then you get this ending thing, and it's yeah, it's not enough to really know what's going on, but it's enough to be intriguing, I guess, to make you want to know what's going on there.
Mm-hmm. And Damon likes his old black guys who are slightly magical, so I wouldn't be surprised if this guy has some weird magic, the magic black man trope thing. So
Right. He's just like, yeah, he's just got really strong arms.
yeah, he's just super strong for some reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's not just Damon Lindelof. That's a
Yeah, I mean he didn't
as you
invent that,
know,
but he
but
likes it.
yeah, yeah, no, he's definitely used it before and commented on it directly. So yeah, yeah. But it's interesting. I like that. The ominous music was great. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that was actually the thing that stood out the most to me on the rewatch this time. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like this is a weird
I
vibe.
think there
Like
was only two times, and it was both when the sheriff was driving at
yeah.
night in the street, that it was 70s horror music for no reason.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's so strange. It's like, God, why is this like? It's like Halloween or it's like
Mm-hmm.
Suspiria or something. It's like, what
Mm-hmm.
the fuck? It's such a weird, uh, it's such a weird mood for the show that doesn't seem
And it
like
was,
it should feel like that.
yeah, and overall there was just a weird mix of music. There was some 80s stuff, there
Mm-hmm.
was some modern stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely. It wasn't all like one thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Um,
And there wasn't a
um,
title sequence.
yeah, it's true.
So I wonder if they're gonna just keep with the episode title will just be in the visual frame. It'll
Hmm.
just show up
And
somehow
that's
at the
it.
beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes in the pilot they don't put the title sequence, so I
Yeah,
think we'll know
exactly.
next week
Yep.
if they're gonna do one or not.
Let the Watchmen be. Yeah, but
Yeah.
overall, yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. I'm excited. Yeah, I agree. I don't think I'm really watching any current shows right now.
Yeah.
So I'm glad to have this, and I
Yeah,
gotta
it's
wait
great.
week to week, but I think sometimes that's nice to have to wait. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it depends on the show, but definitely the way that David Lindelof writes things, I think is
mhm.
better to have time.
Yeah.
Because I think yeah, I think when you just get it all thrown at you, it doesn't have the same impact.
Hmm.
I would also say that about Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah.
Like in general, like I think shows with strong mystery elements.
Yeah, I
I
think
think
mystery
work
shows need some
better.
breathing room, and I think like
Yeah,
action shows week to week is good. I mean,
yeah,
having it all at once so you can just binge through the
right.
action is good.
Yeah, yeah,
Action and procedural type stuff.
right.
Um, but yeah, the whole Don Johnson thing was really surprising. Didn't see it coming that he was going to die at the end. A little stunt casting,
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah, yeah, yeah. When I saw that scene again, I was like, yeah, I should have known, the singing and then the whole like, I'm filled with confidence, it's almost like
Mm-hmm.
Dougie, all of our dreams are coming true. It's like,
Yeah,
okay,
it's like he got overconfident because he was high or something,
yeah,
and wasn't
something's gonna go
thinking.
wrong here.
Yeah.
That's what this is heading for.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you're right. The cocaine was the most like questionable thing, but it was handled in a very light way. It wasn't
Mm-hmm.
clear how bad it was. It seems like he's performing his job. It
Yeah.
doesn't seem
It seems
like,
like it was just like a thing he does sometimes, not like he's a drug addict
yeah.
and it's causing him to
Which
do
is
bad things at
interesting. You don't see
work.
cocaine depicted that way very often.
Yeah, that's what was. Yeah, that's because he's like the sheriff or not sheriff, chief of police or
Chief
whatever.
of police, yeah.
But it's like it's not a big deal if he takes the edge off with a little coke. You know, like yeah,
Yeah.
that's fine. You know,
Yeah.
around the kids. You know, like yeah, it's
Sure.
fine.
Yeah.
Um, so I thought that was interesting, and I like that. I like when these like these usual dramatic elements, like we just get to skip past it because it's so boring. Because there's only,
Mhm.
we've seen all the scenes you can get out of someone's secret drug habit. We've seen
Right.
all those scenes. It's same way with like my secret identity as a vigilante. We know how those scenes play out. So
Mhm.
like her husband
They don't do
knowing
that.
that, yeah, I'm so glad they just skip past that, and then we can
Yeah.
like get to new ideas that are
Like
interesting.
Dexter bullshit or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
No, I
ooh,
agree.
what's he gonna do if he finds out?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. That's a
yeah.
good point. That's a good point. They bypass a lot of obvious things that
Mm-hmm.
they could have made central points in the series, and clearly
Yep.
they're not going to because it's not
Yep.
even a thing.
Yep.
So yeah, that's a good point. Not just like developing something interesting, but signaling that we're not going to do this like shitty thing that's kind of obvious.
Yeah, that you've seen before, and you know how it's
Yeah,
gonna go, and it's not even a big deal to begin with, and
right.
now it could be a little foreshadowing. Oh, okay, if he was doing a little coke, maybe there's something
Hmm.
else. Maybe he's the blah blah
Yeah,
blah. So it could go down that road, but
yeah,
they could say, "Oh, well, where do you think he was getting it from?" Oh, okay, maybe the white supremacist group, they're drug dealers, or so maybe
right.
there's some way to tie it together with that. But I am curious. Yeah, like you said, the big mystery of like why was he killed? I assume it's just a straightforward. He busted up their group there. He killed a couple of their guys. He stopped their operation, and this is the retaliation for that. Um, but the Louis Gossett Jr. being there adds this extra element of surprise to that otherwise straightforward kind of
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that creates a level of interest, and yeah, like I said, that was my main like plot engine thing where it's like, okay, I want to see how they
Hmm.
where they go from there, basically, because it
Like,
it it
is he
wasn't
is he
clear.
clairvoyant? And so when he said like, "Can I lift 200 pounds?" That means like he knows that guy's gonna die.
Yeah, I know, I know. That's the thing. Well, if he's planning to do it, then that's how he would know that it's good. If he's the one who actually did the thing,
Hmm.
then it wouldn't necessarily require powers to be like, I'm
Yeah, but
gonna.
why would he telegraph that to her?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I
Yeah.
have no idea, but I'm just saying,
Hmm.
maybe.
Hmm.
But he called her. He's clearly like got his eye on her for some reason.
Yeah.
Um. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
kind of wanted her to be the baby he finds at the end, but clearly the age thing
yeah,
doesn't
that
work out
age
that
doesn't work at all.
way.
They have to have some time travel. I saw a crackpot theory on Twitter that she was the baby, and it's like,
Hmm.
okay, that's gonna involve some crazy shit because
Yeah.
she's not even close to that old.
Hmm. Regina King, don't you know you're 80 years old?
Oh shit.
My wrinkle cream's real good.
Like, yeah, you're doing a lot for 80. Nice.
Black don't crack. All right, everybody. Well, thanks for joining us for this episode. We'll be back next time with episode 2 of Watchmen.
Hell yeah. It was great. See you next time.
Until then, watch the Watchmen.
Watch out.
Watch your drug habits.
Bye.
Bye.